Worship Outside the Box, a weekly blog of creative ideas for leading worship. Crafting new parables from today's world, becoming modern prophets. Jesus didn't teach with abstract theories. He told stories. Stories about farmers, weddings, money, neighbors, seeds, laborers, and people making a mess of things. It was simple on the surface, but sharp underneath. They slit past offences and open up questions about God, justice, mercy, pride, fear, generosity, and the upside-down values of God's kingdom. What might it look like to invite a congregation, not just to hear parables, but to create them? The idea: give small groups a contemporary issue, social tension, or ordinary modern-day situation, and ask them to shape it into a short parable-like story. Not an essay, not a debate, a story, something brief, vivid, and suggestive. Something that holds up a mirror, something that leaves people thinking. You might give out prompts such as these. A landlord raises rents while leaving homes cold and mouldy. A supermarket throws away food while families go hungry. A teenager gets hundreds of online followers but feels completely alone. A refugee family arrives in town where people are polite but distant. A company talks about sustainability while exploiting workers overseas. A church says, all are welcome, but resists changing anything that would make that true. Allow each group 10 minutes to create a short story that hints at a spiritual truth or moral dilemma. Encourage them to keep it grounded and concrete. Real people, real choices, real consequences. The best parables don't explain everything. They provoke, they unsettle, they invite reflection. This can work well in worship because it moves people from passive listening to active discernment. Instead of being told what a text means, they begin wrestling with how faith speaks into the world we live in. They become interpreters, truth-tellers, in a modest but real sense, prophets. You don't need elaborate resources, just some news headlines or scenario cards, plus paper and pens. After the groups have written their parables, invite them to read the parables aloud. That reading aloud matters. It gives dignity to the work and lets the congregation hear how many different angles people bring to the same challenge. Some stories will be angry, some tender, some funny, some painfully close to home, and that's part of the gift. Parables aren't polished religious ornaments. They're disruptive little containers of truth. This idea could sit well alongside a gospel reading featuring one of Jesus' parables, or in a service focused on justice, discipleship, wisdom, or the prophetic tradition. It could also work in an all-age service with children and adults creating stories together. Children often grasp the heart of a parable faster than adults do, because they're less worried about sounding clever. In a world flooded with information, opinions, and outrage, perhaps one of the things the church can still offer is the art of the truthful story. Not propaganda, not slogans, stories that make us see again. And perhaps that too is part of faithful worship, not just repeating old words, however precious they are, but learning to speak fresh words with courage, imagination, and spiritual depth into the world we are living in now. Ngā mihi.